Cieli si dispieghi, ancor ti prego, regina, che puoi.
Werner von Braun.
Ciò che tu vuoli, che conservi sani, dopo tanto veder gli affetti suoi, vinca tua guardia ai movimenti umani.
Can you believe it?
Gli occhi da Dio diletti e venerati, fissi nell'orator, ne dimostraro quanto i devoti prieghi le son grati. Indi all'eterno lume s'addrizzaro, nel qual non si dee creder che s'invii per creatura l'occhio tanto chiaro. E io, che al fine di tutti i disii
Well, speaking of bombs, what is it that makes America the world's greatest nuclear power? And what is it that will make it possible for us to spend $20,000 million of our taxpayers' money?
We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon.
To put some idiot on the moon. Well, it was the great, enormous superiority of American technology, of course, as provided by our great American scientists, such as Dr. Werner Von Braun.
Dr. Werner Von Braun, Director, Marshall Space Flight Center. I have always considered President Kennedy's commitment that we are going to put men on the moon in this decade as a kind of signal. An objective very clearly defined, universally understandable, which cannot be debated.
And while I sing you of Werner von Braun, a man whose allegiance is ruled by expedience.
This is the first film taken by their new allies of those who made the V2.
Call him a Nazi, he won't even frown. Nazi schmatzi, says Werner von Braun. Don't say that he's hypocritical. Say rather that he's apolitical. Once the rockets are up, who cares where they come down? That's not my department, says Werner von Braun. Some have harsh words for this man of renown, but some think our attitude should be one of gratitude, like the widows and cripples in old London town. Oh, their large pensions to Werner von Braun. To maybe a big hero once you've learned to count backwards to zero.
When you
looked up at the sky, could you actually see the stars and the solar corona in spite of the glare?
The first part of your question, the surface did vary in its thickness of penetration. One must be quite cautious in moving around in this rough terrain.
We were never able to see stars from the lunar surface or on the daylight side of the moon by eye without looking through the optics. I don't recall during the period of time that we were photographing the solar corona what stars we could see.
I don't remember seeing any.
Can you believe it?
Se queste notizie venissero confermate, ma io non ci credo, figurati se è vero. Si dice che c'è un presidente del Consiglio che è stato con una minorenne e con una minorenne che per ragioni di età
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Unreliable test launches of the Atlas had previously reduced NASA to launch their astronauts atop Werner Von Braun's old Redstone rockets, just to get them as far as suborbital flights.
I have always considered President Kennedy's commitment that we are going to put men on the moon in this decade as a kind of signal,
fermati, ma io non ci credo, figurati se è vero. Si dice che c'è un presidente del Consiglio.
And the wires were really bad in here. I'd ask Gus. I said, Gus, why don't you say something about this wiring? I said, it's really terrible. I ought to do something about this wiring. It's really bad. And he said, I don't. And he said, I can't say anything about it or they'll fire me. That's what he told me. Couldn't believe it.
It is an absolute fact that he put a lemon on a hanger and hung it over the lemon, and it's an absolute fact that he burned to death that very lemon.
He did hang a lemon on. That was
it was
communications issues they were having.
He was saying this thing wasn't going to work. No.
Hang on.
He has been quoted many times as saying that the whole problem, the whole program's in jeopardy, and he didn't think it was going to work. He thought the thing was a lemon.
He didn't think the whole thing was a lemon. He was having certain issues with some of the subsystems.
If he was just having issues with subsystems, why would he publicly put a lemon on a hanger and hang it on the lunar module? That is a monstrous statement from the #1 astronaut in the country.
Yeah, Gus Grissom was a pain in the butt to a lot of people. He was a loud guy, very forceful personality.
That sounds like the kind of guy I would kill.
And
if I was running things, if I was running things.
Flags at Cape Kennedy are flying at half-mast on this cold, windy morning, and tight security has been placed around Launch Complex 34, where the big Saturn booster and the charred Apollo spacecraft still stand, empty now except for the investigators who are searching for the cause of the tragic fire. The launch pad is about 3 miles to the northeast of where I'm standing, and we haven't been allowed to go any closer, and we won't be until the NASA personnel and engineers from North American Aviation, makers of the Apollo, have finished their work. They've been going over the spacecraft and booster switch by switch, valve by valve, trying to recreate a picture of what it was like in the moments leading up to the intense flash fire which took the lives of the 3 astronauts. Their bodies were removed from the command section of the Apollo a little before 2 o'clock this morning. They were badly burned. All of the data from the simulation have been impounded for the special board of inquiry which will be named this morning. The data includes tapes of telemetry and voice communications, videotape, if any, from the closed-circuit television cameras in the white room surrounding the spacecraft, and film from motion picture cameras which were aimed at it. Before the bodies of the astronauts were taken out, detailed photographs were made of the position of every switch inside the spacecraft, and it's assumed that the Apollo will be completely dismantled to check its components. But sources close to the project say that the spacecraft is badly burned, charred on the inside, blackened on the outside. Needless to say, it's beyond repair and will never fly. They know this much, that a problem with the communication system developed during the test before the fire, that the interior of the spacecraft was pressurized with 100% oxygen, and that it had been switched to its own power supply. Grissom, White, and Chaffee were inside their inflated suits, and the hatches of the craft were bolted shut. The test had progressed normally except for a few minor problems. And according to a NASA spokesman, the first indication that anything was wrong came when they saw a flash from the television cameras inside the spacecraft, the cameras in the White Room, the flash inside the spacecraft. There was voice communication with the astronauts, but what they said has been classified.
Hey, how are we going to get to the moon if we can't talk between 3 buildings? I can't hear a thing you're saying. Right. Again? And how are we going to get to the moon if we can't talk between 2 or 3 buildings?
We saw pieces of houses like windows and doors actually going by the airplane at around 8,000 feet.
Can you believe it? Can you believe it?
Kitchen. Right away here.
They had that capsule loaded with all kinds of glue and fabrics. They cranked the oxygen pressure up to somewhere about 20 pounds positive. See, they're on a pure oxygen thing in there. Well, 20 pounds of pure oxygen is going to kill you anyway, just about, if the organism won't. And, you know, you make explosion-proof switches for any place that may have gases in it. Well, oxygen is a gas, but they didn't use explosion-proof switches in there. They murdered him. They murdered him.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society.
After a deluded gunman assassinated President Kennedy,
Before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order.
Now wait a minute, bitch.
A world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations.
Leben Sie auch auf einer Baustelle.
When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
Hey, 4544, are you tracking all this? Are you engaging targets? Okay, we had to fix our gun. It appears to be working now. We're back to base now. Okay, come back to the left. Give me a constraint. Signal check on the side. Constraints for a missile shot? No, just constraints for the gun. Okay. Keep coming left. Keep coming left. Come left. Call 7-3 out. Oh yeah, got him. Lots of fire. Yeah, got lots of machine gun fire. Alright. 445, have eyes on the one down, friendly fire. Have eyes on. Roger, active tickets, EMPs out and engage. I got one of the children moving around down in the tent, so watch your fires. Roger, watch your fires. I got 4 armed individuals turned down, going to the east. Roger, give me a spot.
And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
Roger that, engage anybody with weapons, over. Give me, come on, come left. Come left. I gotta get hard left here. Do you still have guys on those other two? Roger. We'll be in here 1 second. Constraints. He's engaging. Okay, Roger. He's getting him. Keep going around. Keep eyes on him then.
All the others.
Man, we're like right over top of him now. Okay, well, get your distance then. To fly the aircraft. We're out of ammo. We're going to have to set up for gunshots, so just keep your distance. Or missile shots. Okay, I'm going to fly outbound for a second. 4544, flying outbound for a second, building some spaces. We're continuing to engage. Lead aircraft is Winchester on 30 millimeter. We'll continue with Hellfire engagements.
What is the prospect that we will catch up with Russia and perhaps surpass Russia in this field?
However tired anybody may be, and no one is more tired than I am, it is a fact that it's going to take some time.
Right now, we need a 10 to 12-year program that has as its ultimate goal the man domination of space. And if we don't, we're going to be in trouble.
X-ray Delta 1, this is Mission Control. Roger, here 2013. Sorry you fellas are having a bit of trouble. We are reviewing telemetric information in our mission simulator and will advise.
This is Tranquility Base. The Eagle has landed. Jesus H. Christ. Houston. We're on the fucking moon. Over. Roger, Tranquility. We copy that. We cannot believe you are on the fucking moon. Repeat, cannot fucking believe it. Over. The moon, for Christ's sake. The moon. Over. You're cleared to hook up lunar equipment conveyor to fucking walk on the moon. Over. I'm descending the ladder. See the Earth. The entire planet Earth. Love of Christ. We read you, Tranquility. Over. On the bottom rung of the ladder. Just one more step and I'm... Tranquility? Holy living fuck. Are you fucking believing this? Over. We read you. Over.
I hope the two of you are not concerned about this.
Well, the facts in the film only help you believe the story.
I absolutely am standing on the surface of the fucking moon. I'm talking to you from the surface of the fucking moon. Jesus H. Christ in a chicken basket. Holy shit, Tranquility. Holy mother of fuck. The fucking moon. Over.
I can see you're really upset about this. I honestly think you ought to sit down calmly, take a stress pill and think things over.
All three of us decided not to participate in Apollo 11. Why would we go there? You just get overawed, you set up a series of expectations, and you're bound to get disappointed one way or the other. I thrived on addictive substances, alcoholism, and clearly that began to predominate in my unstructured life. We were obsessed with doing the best that we possibly could so that we wouldn't trip over the wire that goes out to the TV camera that's recording all that we're doing.
That's Buzz Aldrin, whose new book is called Magnificent Desolation.
Just 1 year before the first mission to the moon, NASA launched the Tetra satellite, specifically designed to simulate flight data coming from the moon, so that the ground crews could rehearse the landing, much as the astronauts did in their own simulations. Had it not supposedly fallen back to Earth, all that would have been needed during the actual flight would be a repeat of one of these computer programs, with a few original variations, transmitted to the satellite for rebroadcast to Houston. Scores of computers and their deceived operators on the ground would then receive prearranged information, including the alleged location, altitude and fuel consumption of the spacecraft, as if it were descending to the moon's surface.
All right, we now have a picture from Apollo 11, so let's go to Houston for the conversation between the spacecraft and Houston, and we'll see these pictures. There's the Earth.
An old reel received by mistake.
The Earth from 130,000 nautical, or about 149,000 statute miles.
It contains the raw or unedited footage of the crew of Apollo 11, staging part of their mission for nearly an hour in living color. For the reel itself is slated and dated July 18th, 19th and 20th, 1969, the very days of the mission when they were said to be approaching and achieving lunar orbit. With exceptionally clear behind-the-scenes audio of conversations discussing the techniques used to achieve a disingenuous picture depicting the Earth at a distance. Houston Control initiates a conversation with the crew, only to find them too preoccupied with the behind-the-scenes trickery to respond. Moments pass and the oversight is picked up on by the clandestine third party, who quickly prompts them with talk. Immediately, Neil Armstrong speaks.
Oh, Apollo 11, Houston, Goldstone says that the TV looks great. Over. Okay, Roger, Roger, you're seeing Earth as we see it at our left-hand window.
Again, the illusion they are attempting to create is the Earth at a distance to demonstrate their far journey from it and their ability to survive passing through the Van Allen radiation belts.
Just a little more than a half Earth. We're looking at the eastern Pacific Ocean.
Understand, too, that only about 20 seconds of this raw footage was ever broadcast to the public.
In the north half of the top half of the screen, we can see North America.
And these conversations discussing their deception were believed to be private, until now.
Alaska, United States, Canada.
Here they discuss that these television transmissions were in fact not broadcast live as everyone believed. They were first screened and edited for playback later.
Roger, Neil, we just wanted a narrative such that we can, when we get to playback, we can sort of correlate what we're seeing. Thank you very much. Mexico and Central America.
Here they discuss the fact that they have turned out the lights and have blocked out sunlight from entering the spacecraft through the other windows, as to not cause any reflected light to fall onto the spacecraft's wall in the foreground.
Okay, very good. Well, we shut out the sun coming in some of the other windows into the spacecraft, so it's looking through the number one window, and there isn't any reflected light. South America becomes invisible just off beyond the terminator.
The reason this was done is so that the truth of the matter would not be revealed. It is this. Though the federal government would have you believe that this is a view of Earth from a distance out of the spacecraft's window as it nears the moon, it is not.
Inside the shadow. We can see the oceans with...
What they have ingeniously done is placed the camera at the back of the spacecraft and centered the lens on a circular window in the foreground.
There's one definite mild storm southwest of Alaska.
Outside of which it is completely filled with the Earth in low orbit. The circumference of the window then appears to be the diameter of the Earth at a distance, with the darkened walls of the spacecraft appearing to be the blackness of space around it.
like about 500 to 1,000 miles, and another very minor storm showing...
That is why they wanted the interior dark and blocked out the sun from entering through the other windows. Here you can see the extruded window, probably 2 inches thick at the bottom. This is because the Earth's shine is coming in at a downward angle. It also causes the Earth to appear to be an irregularly shaped circle, for you are seeing the outside of the window at the bottom and the inside of the window at the top.
South end of the screen near the,
which together form 2 different sized halves of a circle. Subsequently, this take was never used.
Coastlines pick out the western U.S.
As they perfected the shot, a crescent-shaped piece of black material was inset slightly into the window to create the illusion of the Earth's terminator line dividing night and day. It is uncannily convincing. During this segment, intended to be edited and played back later for the worldwide television audience, dated July 18, 1969, Neil Armstrong condemns himself as he states that he is 130,000 miles out, or halfway to the moon, as the NASA flight log also states on this date, when he is in reality in low Earth orbit of a few hundred miles.
Roger, Houston, Apollo 11. Calling in from about 130,000 miles out.
A long way south of the equator, probably 45 degrees or more south latitude.
Here, during another segment, also intended to air after review, Neil Armstrong falsely explains to the viewers how the shot is attained by putting the camera's lens to the window's glass, as it would have to be if they were the claimed distance away from the Earth.
We were saying, Cliff Charlesworth said...
we can still see the Earth through the left window, and it appears that we can see a floodlight off to the left, either that or some sun shafting through the hatch window.
We only have one window that has a view of the Earth, and it's filled up with the TV camera.
Almost looks like 2 Earths.
It's floodlight.
If the window was completely filled up with a TV camera, as he stated, then an astronaut's arm would not be able to get between the camera and the window, as it obviously does here in this outtake.
South America becomes invisible just off beyond the Terminator or inside the shadow.
You can also notice how the astronaut operating the camera reacted to the mistake by attempting to pan away from it.
A definite blue cast. See white bands of major cloud formations across the Earth.
White bands of major cloud formations across the Earth.
This is a segment that they believed wasn't even being recorded, much less suitable for broadcast, for the lens was being zoomed out and the scene was being changed to that of an interior of the astronauts at work.
Now we're coming in. Can't quite make out who that had. That's Big Mike Collins there. Well, you got a little bit of... Yeah, hello there, Split Fans. You got a little bit of me, plus Neil's in the center couch, and Buzz is doing the camera work this time. Roger, it's a little dark now, 11. Maybe a bigger f-stop might help.
Apparently the stop button popped back up on the recorder without notice. Here is the diffused work light that they used to see camera controls.
Yeah, that didn't work. It's getting a lot better now, 11. Mikey coming in 5. I got a good...
But not throw light onto the spacecraft's wall. Here they remove part of the crescent insert. Finally, the iris is opened up and you can see the real location of the camera and the very bright and near Earth out the window.
Well, I put on a coat and tie if I'd known about this ahead of time.
Here is the slate for the 19th of July, and the same shot of trickery on the 19th of July, and then the 20th, and the same misleading shot on the 20th. Later that evening, they were said to be walking on the moon. How can this be when they were in Earth orbit only 9 hours earlier, and the moon is some 3 days' journey away?
Is Buzz holding your cue cards for you, over?
Furthermore, if they genuinely went to the moon, why would they be faking any part of it?
Joaquin Valley, the Sierra Mountain Range, the peninsula of Baja California.
Why this trickery with the window?
And can see some cloud formations over southeastern U.S.
By faking being halfway to the moon, it becomes apparent that they did so because they could not even go halfway.
We are headed 3,600 miles above Earth, 15 times higher from the planet than the International Space Station.
It thus confirms that the stumbling block to their success was the lethal radiation of the Van Allen radiation belts.
As we get further away from Earth, we'll pass through the Van Allen belts, an area of dangerous radiation. Radiation like this could harm the guidance systems, onboard computers, or other electronics on Orion. Naturally, we have to pass through this danger zone twice, once up and once back. But Orion has protection. Shielding will be put to the test as the vehicle cuts through the waves of radiation. Sensors aboard will record radiation levels for scientists to study. We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space. Before we send people through this region of space. Before we send people through this region of space.
Can you believe it?
Well, the facts in the film only help you believe the story.
Today we have with us a group of students among America's best. To you, we say, we have only completed a beginning.
People need to be responsible when they think about intentionally, for their own benefit, misleading the young people who are the future leaders of our world.
We leave you much that is undone.
It was as if you were looking at a television set with the contrast turned to full contrast, very black and very white. As you moved further into the light, there were more and more shades of gray.
There are great ideas undiscovered.
The gases within his body would immediately expand.
Piacerli si dispieghi, ancor ti prego, regina, che puoi. Werner Von Braun. Ciò che tu vuoli, che conservi sani, dopo tanto veder gli affetti suoi. Vinca tua guardia ai movimenti umani.
Can you believe it?
To the citizenry high above the Earth, to demonstrate 1/6 gravity, a bouncy, floaty feel to the astronauts' movements would be similarly achieved with relative simplicity. Slow motion. You are viewing the scenes as they aired more than 30 years ago. Now let's look at them with the speed doubled. It becomes discernible that they are, in fact, in Earth's gravity, and are no more leaving the ground than they would on Earth.
Can you believe it?
It is clear from these rarely seen color television pictures that the crew of Apollo 11 brought a high-resolution color video camera with them on their mission. Yet the only pictures broadcast live from the moon's surface were these from a low-definition black and white camera.
It was as if you were looking at a television set with the contrast turned to full contrast, very black and very white.
I'll just take some of my first pictures here.
For still pictures, it's not the sequence camera, which I
Loud and clear. Let's see, get some pictures.
In fact, the networks complained because in addition to this, they were forced to shoot the images second generation off of a projection TV of the technology of 30 years ago, and were not even allowed to take a direct feed, which further degraded the quality and clarity of the images. Perhaps this was precisely what NASA and the federal government had in mind.
Shades of gray.
After all, it was a first, regardless of where they were. Better to open up their debut mission with fuzzy pictures and numerous blackouts, rather than show too much revealing detail of a false scene that was yet unproven.
Breakthroughs available to those who can remove one of truth's protective layers. One of truth's protective layers.
It's our privilege today to share with you some of the details of that final month of July.
One of truth's protective layers.
That was certainly the highlight for the three of us of that decade. We're going to divert a little bit from the format of past press conferences and talk about the things that interested us most, in particular the things that occurred on and about the moon. We will use a number of films and slides which most of you have already seen.
Well, the facts in the film only help you believe the story.
And with the intent of pointing out some of the things that we observed on the spot, which may not be obvious to those of you who are looking at them here from the surface of Earth. The flight, as you know, started promptly. And I think that was characteristic of all the events of the flight. The Saturn gave us one magnificent ride. Both into Earth orbit and on a trajectory to the moon. Our memory of that actually differs little from the reports that you have all heard from those previous Saturn V flights, and the previous flights served us well.
Voice communication with the astronauts, but what they said has been classified.
Hey, how are we going to get to the moon if we can't talk between three buildings? I can't hear a thing you're saying. Jesus Christ. Again? But how are we going to get to the moon if we can't talk between two or three buildings?
In preparation for this flight, in the boost as well as the subsequent phases.
Can you believe it? Can you believe it?
Right away,
They had that capsule loaded with all kinds of glue and fabrics. They cranked the oxygen pressure up to somewhere about 20 pounds.
But some think our attitude should be one of gratitude.
We would like to skip directly to...
Wilbur Wright once noted that the only bird that could talk was the parrot. The parrot. The parrot. The parrot. And he didn't fly very well.
In German or English, I know how.
In August 1943, Peenemünde, as well as the V2 factories, are bombed by the British.
Air Marshal Harris, who was the bomber Harris, in the RAF, as leader records showed, had actually instructed the bomber pilot, get the scientists, because they can always rebuild the facility, but it's really the brains that we want to get,
How to count down, and I'm learning Chinese, says Werner Von Braun.
I have always considered President Kennedy's commitment that we are going to put men on the moon in this decade as a kind of signal. The objective very clearly defined, universally understandable, which cannot be debated. Everybody knows what the moon is, what this decade is, and what it means to get some people there and bring them back. It puts the program into focus in a very beautiful, clear, and concise way. Here is the method by which we plan our moon mission.